US tariffs on steel and aluminium have now come into effect. Australia also faces a 25% US tariff after Donald Trump rejected calls for exemptions despite strong lobbying. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called the move unjustified and not a friendly act, warning it undermines the 70-year economic partnership between the two nations. The White House confirmed no country would receive a carve-out, with Trump's America First policy prioritizing domestic steel production. Meanwhile, Trump's sudden reversal on doubling tariffs on Canadian metals from 25% to 50% caused market turmoil before being rolled back, wiping $5 trillion from US stock values in a single day. As US tariffs take effect at midnight US time, global trade tensions and recession fears mount. Let's take a listen to what both leaders had to say.
Such a decision by the Trump administration is entirely unjustified. This is against the spirit of our two nations' enduring friendship and fundamentally at odds with the benefits that our economic partnership has delivered over more than 70 years.
The Ontario Premier calling you and giving you his decision about the electricity surcharge, and you said you were pleased about that. Will you make a different decision now about the tariffs on Canada? Will you reduce it?
At that, but probably so, yeah.
You're looking
he was a gentleman.
We are now joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow Hudson Institute located in Tokyo, Japan. Dr. Nagao, thank you very much for joining us. I want to focus on the updates that have just come in. These steel tariffs, all imports on steel tariffs from the USA have been added a 25% tariff on them. How is this flip-flapping of adding tariffs, taking away tariffs, making sense, and how is it going to affect the global market?
Of course, it will affect because the rising prices means that price of the product will rise. So it will affect many areas because most of the products in the world use some kind of the iron, and so rising the tariff of iron will affect a wider area of the products, and especially between the US and Japan, it will affect too.
So how is this going to, is this flip-flapping of this policy going to make making any sense? We've obviously just seen the US lose trillions of dollars on the stock market in a single day. How is this going to come out positively for the Trump administration and as America as a whole?
In my opinion, this is a part of a big project of the United States because since the 1980s, the US leads the global free trade framework. But under this global free trade framework, China is catching up to the United States. If the global free trade rule is beneficial only for the United States, or the US get most of the benefit, that is good for the United States, but in this case, current rule is maybe US is losing their status as a number one. So that's why the current US government do not want to continue the same rule in the global free trade. Maybe tariff is one of the methods to change the rule itself. So that's why he focusing on tariff, but not only against rival like China, but also the other countries, because the changing rule itself needs a huge demand. So from the US government, I believe the temporary recession will come, but in the long run, US will get the benefit under the new rule. But at least their goal is something like that, I think.
Dr. Nagao, many people are throwing around this phase, and that phase is a trade war. For people who don't know what that is and what the consequences of that might possibly be in these nations, including Canada, including China, what does this mean? President Xi Jinping has famously said there are no winners in a trade war. Can you explain to people what this actually means?
Of course, United States uses two type of tariff. Trump administration uses two type of tariff, I think. So against China and against Canada and Mexico, other country is completely different. Against Canada and Mexico, the U.S. want to change the rule of the global trade, but at the same time, this is the tool of the bilateral negotiation. And Trump administration seeks a deal in the bilateral negotiation by using the intimidation. So intimidation part is tariff, and so each tariff is intimidation, and finally they will deal as a business deal in this case. But in case of China, completely different. This is a strategic competition, and the tariff is a tool of the strategic competition. Because China is rich, China can invest huge money to the military to change rule of the world, and they are catching up U.S. status if they continue to rise. So that's why in case of China, imposing tariff is tool of the competition, so not negotiable. So that's why the two type of tariff Trump is seeking. One is winning the competition with China. Another one is changing the rule of the global free trade and get more benefit for the United States. But that is the two type of tariff the current U.S. government is seeking, I believe.
Dr. Nagao, Donald Trump has particularly focused on steel and aluminium to impose these tariffs. He's also not discriminated on who these are going to affect. Why has Donald Trump chosen these metals or this import in particular to impose these hefty tariffs on?
I believe this is directly linked with his way of thinking. His government way of thinking is when we check the joint statement between the U.S. and Japan or U.S. and India, we can they can focusing on the weapon trade, energy security, or advanced technology, but not environmental issue, not ideology issue, not backed in diplomacy. So, view from this, they like hard power very much. Iron and aluminum is related with military power. So that's why the hard power related economical part. So that's why they're focusing on this area first. But this is not a meaning they will not focusing on other area in the future.
Dr. Nagawa, I just wanted to move briefly on to Canada. Donald Trump has obviously reversed these 50% tariffs that he previously put on them and then rolled them back. Why has Donald Trump started this economic battle with one of America's longest living trade allies and one of their biggest trade allies?
Because this is a tool of the negotiation. Tariff is just intimidation. The intention is not imposing tariff. So as a bilateral negotiation between U.S. and Canada, something has happened. And in this case, making pressure to Canada, they use the tariff and sometimes use imposing tariff but withdraw the tariff and postpone. So that is rely on what kind of negotiations they are doing just now.
Dr. Satoru Nagao, thank you very much for joining us.